You're not responsible. It was wrong. Reach out to me. We'll connect you.
I will never see, speak, or hear from Aaron Smith-Levin for the rest of my life.
I've been raised since the age of 4 to follow orders, do as I was told, or risk losing everything.
If we speak out, that's the only way they're going to get the strength to have the courage to do the same.
Why the hell does someone have to escape to get out of a religion?
I'm still shocked by the evil. This is pure evil at work. Part 2 with Chris Shelton, something I'm sure you've all been waiting for. It is everything's covered that wasn't covered in Part 1. He talks about OTVIII versus OTVIII, which is some confusion I had with the content of those. Talks about abuse in the church, a Scientology, quote-unquote, church. And we also talk a lot about the well-being of Shelly Miscavige and others, as well as 10 questions. I plan on doing this. I don't know how many extra episodes I'm going to do, but I want the conversation to continue beyond Leah Remini's TV show when it's over, beyond Louis Theroux's special movie when it comes to America, beyond all these things, because these things tend to get forgotten really fast. So in an effort to keep the conversation going, I'm going to have a very interesting third extra episode of Come Get Some next Friday. Stay tuned to the end of Part 2 with Chris Shelton here to hear what I have coming up next and going into the future here on the subject of cults and Scientology more specifically. Here's Part 2 of Chris Shelton. I hope you all enjoy it.
So there are parents who get it and go, I really like Scientology, I really like L. Ron Hubbard, but this Sea Org stuff, I don't know about this.
That would be like Katie Holmes.
And so yeah, exactly. So you get varying, it's not everybody in Scientology is not a mindless robot. There's varying levels of commitment and dedication and belief.
And sometimes it's like I made the analogy with Kathy Schenkelberg. I don't know if you know her very well or not.
I do.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, I asked her about it. It's kind of like being pot committed in a poker game. You've already put all your chips in. Like, you might as well see what happens if you stay in the hand.
That's right. That's a great analogy for the Scientology mindset. If you start having doubts, some people never have those doubts. They go in and they're all in, man. They just all in all the time. Here we go, And other people are kind of like, I don't know about this.
Right.
In for a penny, in for a pound. So, there we go.
You're in, yeah.
Yeah.
So it must be. It feels like after watching Leah Remini's program and seeing people talk about getting to OTVIII and beyond, that it's a great disappointment. You don't find what you're looking for ever.
Yeah. I was involved for 27 years, and the highest I got was the state of clear, right? And then they canceled that on me, and I got sent back down to the bottom. It's kind of ironic that when I left Scientology, I was at the exact same place on that bridge to total freedom of theirs. I was at the same place as the day I walked in.
Wow.
Which I thought was interesting. They sent me all the way back down to the bottom, right? I was going to have to redo that purification rundown and sweat out all my toxins and all that bullshit.
Wow.
But after I got out, so I never made it to those OT levels. But once I started finding out how bad it all was, when I left the Sea Org, and I got on the internet, and I went down this rabbit hole of truth of like, oh my God, this is like, what have I been doing for the last 27 years?
Right.
When I went down that hole, the last thing that I read was the OT level. I got the information on the internet. And I was, and I was still, even after everything I'd read, after 3 months of like, all this like, horrible, awful truth about Scientology, hitting me up one side and down the other. I still had some trepidation about reading these OT levels because the indoctrination is so heavy in Scientology that if you expose yourself to this material before you're ready for it, it could hurt you.
Oh, you were afraid to read it.
And yes, I actually still had some little trepidation in the back of my head. But when I did, and the reason I'm talking about this is I was furious at how stupid it was. How illogical it was. I mean, I read them all. I read OT 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, I read everything.
And it took that long. It takes that long to get to the point.
Pissed.
Oh. Yeah, so it takes you so long.
I'm so upset.
It takes you so long to get to the point that you.
It doesn't make any sense. The whole Xenu thing doesn't make sense. The OT1 material doesn't make sense. The OT2 material. I mean, Xenu is just one tiny part of it. There's so much to it. This is why I wrote a book, is so I could explain all this stuff. I have a whole chapter about these OT levels, and Xenu is there, but that's just part of it. There's a whole lot more to what Hubbard says.
Well, that's the easiest thing.
I read all of it.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. It was just totally crazy. It's logically inconsistent.
Right.
It's factually wrong. He asserts things as facts that are not true. There's just no way they're true.
Just says it.
Volcanoes on Earth 76 trillion years ago. You're like, what are you talking about?
Was it DC 8?
I mean, this kind of stuff, right? It's crazy. He refers to, just a stupid little thing, just as an example, he refers to, in the whole Xenu narrative, he's talking about this guy. Actually, by the way, the name of the ruler was Xenu with an M, not N. Everybody gets it wrong, but it's kind of funny how that happened. But anyway, Xenu, this guy, he's this galactic overlord who's solving overpopulation by killing everybody with, through genocide with atomic weapons. And he brings everybody in the galaxy to Earth, right? Trillions and trillions of people in these DC-10s or 9s or whatever. And Hubbard says that one of the stars that belong to the galactic system here, of planets that were the Galactic Confederation, as ridiculous as all this sounds,
right?
He said that one of the planets, one of the stars that made up this confederation was Polaris, the North Star. Well, guess what? Polaris has only been the North Star for the last 2,000 years. If that, right? The North Star changes because guess what? We're moving through space, and so is everything else, and it changes position drastically over the millennia. So if you trace back what the North Star was 76 million years ago, it's not Polaris. It's a very, very different star, right? Because the whole night sky was radically different that long ago.
Right.
So it's just, I just bring this up as a little tiny nitpick, but it's that kind of stupid fact-type thing that you can just take all this stuff apart with. Hubbard didn't have a clue about astronomy, or he never would have said something so stupid.
Right. But everybody just listens.
And that kind of thing, you just go, what? And the OT levels are filled with this kind of factual dribble. And I read this stuff, and I just thought, this is what I worked my ass off for 27 years for?
Right.
Is this? This is what's supposed to save the world? This is what's supposed to give me the answers to life? This is crazy. This stuff is crazy talk. This is the ravings of a madman. And I was just so pissed. Oh my God, was I pissed.
Can you clarify for me something?
I understand when people get to the top of the bridge in Scientology and feel some degree of disappointment.
Yes. Yes. Can you clarify? Yeah, can you clarify for me? Because I always got this mixed up, I guess, because when I went through reading the OT levels as a curious bystander years ago, I stopped at OT3 because it was ridiculous enough I didn't need to see anymore.
Yeah.
I thought I read or heard that somewhere that when Xenu, and I have to go back and listen to those audio recordings. Apparently he says it in the audio you said in a past interview with somebody, and I've heard those drunken rumblings before, but I don't remember them very well. But
yeah, he says it in a lecture, and he actually did write it with an M. It's a cursive M, so it looks like an N, so people get confused. But that's
so he says that Xenu brought these different various races of overpopulated aliens, dropped them into the volcanoes frozen, dropped hydrogen bombs on them. Now here's where my confusion comes in, and hopefully you can clear it up, because I'm hearing that in OTVIII that God and Jesus and religion's implanted by psychiatrists. But what my recall from OT3 was that when the spirits of the aliens rose from the volcano, they were caught in some kind of spirit catching magic net and put into a movie theater, and they were brainwashed the story of Jesus Christ.
They were implanted not with Jesus Christ specifically. If we're going to get into the real, this is real nitty minutia now.
Okay.
But they were not implanted with Jesus Christ. They were implanted with religion. Period.
Okay. So
Angels,
more specifically,
devils, God. Yeah, like the whole concept of God, angels, devils. I think Hubbard says all the concepts of Catholicism and Christianity. Or I think he specifically says Catholicism were implanted at that time.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, he puts a lot on this whole Xenu thing, and now at the level of OT8, he further clarifies this by talking about the fact that the Jesus figure is an implant, and whether that's part of OT3 or some other implant, or it happens numerous times in a person's near infinite life cycle of having lived in this universe for, trillions and trillions of years, according to Hubbard.
Right.
This Messiah idea, the idea of the way Hubbard presents this, that the way I can explain it that makes the most rational sense is that there are other civilizations, there are other cultures out in the space, right, that have made a business of enslaving other populations, other planetary populations, right? Kind of like evil Star Trek or something, right? They go around and take over planets, and they don't have a prime directive. They take over. And one of the mechanisms that they use to control populations is this concept of a Messiah. And the Messiah figure, whether it's Jesus or Muhammad or whoever, is actually one of them who comes down and tells the population, I'm here to save you, and this sort of thing, and then actually controls the population and keeps them subjected, right?
Oh.
And this is a control mechanism to control whole civilization. And this is how Hubbard viewed religion. And it makes sense that this is how Hubbard viewed religion, because look at what he did with religion, right? So this is how he viewed all of organized religion. He viewed it as a control mechanism to control the masses. And so this was part of the narrative of Scientology, and that's why he says at OT3 and again at OT8 that this Jesus figure is just an implant. It's just an idea that was forced on you as a being many trillions of years ago, and you've carried this idea, and that's why you have religious beliefs now. Is because you were told to have religious beliefs, and you were, made to feel this way. And this is how Hubbard tells Scientologists that they've been controlled all these years, and that Scientology is freeing them of these implants. You see. So that's the most rational explanation I can give you for where Hubbard was actually coming from with this.
So it's really no coincidence that everything that anyone who ever leaves Scientology is accused of, and anything that could possibly oppose Scientology is accused of all the things that Scientology actually is and does, and Scientologists at the top do. And
you got it. You nailed it.
It's just a mirror. It's just a mirror.
Yes.
It's insane. It's very clear. It's insane how clear it is and how much they think they're hiding it. Now, I want to say something real quick.
I know, right?
I want to say something real quick.
It's so funny. Yeah.
For anyone listening who is in Scientology who may have snuck away and secretly listened to this podcast, rolling your eyes that can't accept anything you heard here today, please listen to this. Chris can confirm this. I've heard this before many times, that when you're going up the bridge and you clear certain areas, you're sent back because the book has something missing from it. Something wasn't done right, and you have to do it right now and pay for it again, the course and the book. And I believe you have to return the old book, right? So you don't even get compensated for the old book.
That's right.
All right, so listen to this. You heard it from Chris in Scientology for how many years? 27?
Yeah.
You heard it from Leah Remini, a lifetime in Scientology. You heard it from Mike Rinder, years and years in Scientology. You've heard it for everyone who's ever come out of Scientology
that that's happened to them. If it happens to you next week, please know there can only be so many things that they forgot that L. Ron Hubbard, who died in 19 when? that they uncovered and he wrote and they couldn't find. There could only be so much. It's not like Tupac where he keeps making music.
Exactly. Well, you know, and here, and I'm just going to say, since we're on this subject, it's a real insult to the intelligence of every Scientologist and to the memory of L. Ron Hubbard to even assert that that's the case at all. That there were transcription errors,
you know what?
Errors with L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, that's a bit in fault.
And well, here's the thing: L. Ron Hubbard wrote almost all of those books in the 1950s. Does anybody really believe that he never looked at his own books? that in all those years he wouldn't have noticed massive, major flaws of that character in his own book? Over 20 years later, he never cracked open a copy of his own Dianetics or Science of Survival or Fundamentals of Thought or Problems of Work or any of these books? I'm like, come on, of course he did. I mean, I'm an author. I've written a book. I've opened up my own book plenty of times.
Right.
And there's plenty of times I would have noticed errors in it, you know, typography errors, transcriptionist errors, and so to even think that something that L. Ron Hubbard dedicated his entire, you know, second half of his life to, and he did, you know, right, you know, say what you will about Hubbard, he really did believe in his subject, right? Especially over the last 20 years of his life, he really, really bought his own bullshit.
Really,
he was dedicated to making it happen. I mean, the guy was a megalomaniac. He was an ego. He was a narcissist. He was all kinds of horrible things. But he did buy into his own subject, and so to think that he was not deadly serious about his subject being properly communicated to people, and he was serious about that, right? So to assert this idea that he never looked at his own book,
right,
and noticed these things, you see what I'm saying? It's ludicrous. And David Miscavige actually stood on a stage and did that.
And this is errors. These errors are just commas, you said on one interview, right? Sometimes it's just a bad punctuation.
There were varying degrees of things that Miscavige said Hubbard missed, right? Now, he never said Hubbard missed them. He said it was the transcriptionists and the typists and the editors and all these people. But it was things like, you know, all these semicolons in this one book, Science of Survival. He said they got rid of like 900 or 1,000 semicolons or something that were incorrectly put in there. And there was another book where pages had been put out of place, and so the text didn't make sense because page 3 was actually page 5, and page 5 was actually page 4, and they got it all mixed up, and now they found that and they fixed it, and and at first I was there with everybody else in 2004 or 5 when he said this, and I went, okay, all right, well maybe that makes sense because these books are kind of hard to read and they are sort of gibberishy. And maybe that's why, right? And I was like, okay, good. And everybody kind of secretly was like, oh, okay, maybe this is why this stuff never made any sense to me. Remember we were talking about that earlier, right?
Yeah.
So we were, we're craving some, okay, good, this makes sense, right? But then you stop and think about it for a minute, and you go, wait a minute, Hubbard never noticed this,
right?
So then it all just breaks down again, and it just becomes a more nonsense. But this is Scientology. This is how it rolls.
It's really multi-level marketing to an extent. I mean, even
it is everything.
Even the iPhone 7.
Rolled into one.
The iPhone 7 could have come out 5 years ago. I mean, it's just they had the perfect book years ago, but they want to give out the different ones. It's the same ones in rotation, I bet. It's the same ones in rotation.
Exactly.
All right, so I want to ask you.
It's all pretty goofy stuff, and it's very laughable, and it would be, it would just be funny, except for the abuses.
There's just too much physical sexual, and mental, all over the place.
That's right. Exactly. And it really does ruin people's lives, and that's. I mean, I lost my fiance. I lost, a potential family I was going to, marry into. I lost friends that I had for over 20 years overnight. I mean, just imagine that. You're going through life, and suddenly, 90% of your Facebook friends are gone, out of your life forever. They don't want to talk to you. If you happen to work for any of them, you don't have a job anymore. If you're married to them, guess what? You don't have a spouse anymore. You don't have kids anymore. It's like that. That's what Scientology does to people who question it, at all start thinking for themselves. This is what happens. And that is destructive. There's no other word for it. And so that's why people need to stay away from it. The goofy beliefs are one thing, but the practice of Scientology is what is really, really destructive. And that's what I'm far more interested in exposing or getting out to the world than the fact that they have goofy beliefs, which are goofy. No question about it. It's very laughable. But those abuses are for real. And there's really, not to get all, stupid or serious or anything, but the truth is there really isn't a whole lot funny about that.
Not at all. I can tell you, I intentionally, with the rant we talked about earlier that I went on last week, I intentionally didn't get into details of the Mike Rinder thing because I didn't want to do that injustice. I didn't want to take away from what I was saying about Amy Scobie. It's all very serious. Yeah. It is. And we point out the silly stuff because we want people to see it. We want people to understand. Look.
Yeah, it's goofy.
Just see it. Yeah. Just see it and know.
Yeah.
And I want to know, do you buy into the physical abuses? You think Tom Devat and Mike Rinder were physically abused?
Yes. I'm absolutely positive that happened because I was physically abused in Scientology. Not by David Miscavige, but by his direct juniors. And I'm absolutely positive that they learned it from him. So I have zero question as to whether David Miscavige, has beat up on his staff. I'm positive that he has.
Oh, wow. And Leah Remini was once one of these people you looked at. I remember watching the John Sweeney interview in BBC where she laughed at him when he mentioned Xenu, and you could tell, she's a great actress and all, but you could tell her and Kirsty that there was something insincere with that cackle, that oh, Xenu, right, whatever. You could tell, and when you watch that scene with Mike Rinder, you can see it on Scientology Aftermath on the Mike Rinder episode. And I remember thinking this in 2007, I think, when I watched it, was this like, why is he saying this? He's yelling, John Sweeney's trying to help him. You're being abused in there, aren't you? And he's saying it's rubbish. And you can see the look in Mike's face. He doesn't believe what he's saying. You can see it. And it's terrible.
And you can see physically what he looks like.
He didn't look all that well.
He's undernourished. He looked awful, And I used to, honestly, kind of look the same way. Because they work your ass off, man. And they don't feed you well.
Right.
So it's not, it was, when I was on that RPF program for 3 years, and when I got off that thing, I don't know, I think I was down to about 135 or something.
Wow.
I did not have a whole lot of body fat at that point. It was very physically grueling activity. And so was the hole where Mike, had come from when he was on that BBC special. He looked awful. You look at him now compared to then, and it's night and day.
Right. And I was trying to get to
color in his skin now.
Yep. I was trying to get to what I was going to say. So you can look back at those old videos of Mike Rinder, and I've even said in the past, in my Kathy interview, I said, he kind of looked like a prick, the way he came off, because that's what he was being told to do, and he felt like he had to get out of his trouble, because he was in a bad place. And I found out shortly after that he had left right after that. And
exactly.
And you look at that, and it's easy to think bad things about Mike Rinder, and it's easy to think bad things about Leah Remini, but you've met them, and you spent time with them. What is your opinion of those two?
They're great people. No, they're great people. Leah is tough as nails, man. She is hardcore. What you see with her is what you get. I mean, that is exactly what she's like. And she is very serious about about this show and about, you know, this issue that she's taken on and taking on the Church of Scientology. This is not some little pet project she's got going on because she doesn't have something better to do.
Yeah.
Mike, of course, was like me. He and I have both been, you know, speaking out against Scientology for years now. He's got this daily blog he has.
Yep.
Now he's testified in court. He has done TV shows and that sort of thing. And you know, I don't know. I guess I can say that now too. But that's, you know, that's what we do, and we do it because we were involved with something where we were, in a way, we were responsible for hurting people, you know,
right,
through our actions and through our inaction. And once you find out about that, you have a decision to make. You know, what am I going to do about that? Am I going to just, you know, forget it? Am I going to move on with my life and never think about it again? That's an option. You can do that. Or, you know, we joined Scientology because we wanted to help people. We honestly believed that what we were doing was helping people. And that purpose to help doesn't go away.
Oh,
just
no.
because you leave Scientology, right? In fact, it becomes even stronger. And so now that the Scientology nonsense is out of our heads, we're able to focus our attention, you know, that much more. And we want to do something about this destructive group. And so that's what Mike's doing, that's what I'm doing, and what a lot of other people are doing and have been doing. Because I have to and I'm just going to comment on this real fast, this wave of anti-Scientology media and the exposure of it and that sort of thing is late on a series of things that have been going on since the 70s and 80s. And we're really standing, Mike and I and Leah, you know, we're able to do what we're doing because of what people before us did. And in a way, we are standing on the shoulders of giants. Yep. The people who came before us, who had to endure 100 times more, you know, personal fair gaming than a website.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm getting off light compared to, say, Paulette Cooper in the 70s.
Oh, God.
Or, you know, Jerry Armstrong in the 80s, or Lawrence Wallersheim in the 80s and 90s, you know, Dennis Ehrlich in the 90s. I mean, there are people who suffered great personal, they paid a price, let's put it that way.
Yep.
And it was a heavy price in order to take on Scientology back before the internet, before it was easy to do. You know, now I can do a YouTube channel and I can do a blog and I have the ability to do that, and it's relatively easy compared to what Paulette Cooper had to go through in the 1970s, where they drove her nearly to suicide.
Just to clarify,
implanted, you know.
You're about to say it right now. Go ahead. You're saying it.
Well, yeah, they had people implanted in her life. I mean, her boyfriend for 5 months was a Scientologist reporting back to the church every day. She had no idea.
Right.
And he was literally trying to talk her into killing herself. I mean, it's horrifying what they did to her. It's unbelievable, which is why it's hard to even talk about because it's so unbelievable.
And they framed her, right?
Her back in the 70s.
They framed her for bomb threats, didn't they? Using her own stationery.
Yes, they framed her for a bomb threat. They had her in court with the FBI investigating her because the FBI thought that she was threatening to bomb the Church of Scientology, when it was the Church of Scientology who had written the bomb threats on her stationery and turned them into the FBI to frame her. And all of this came out when they raided the church in 1977 and they got the documents. They just happened to get documents about her. That's not why they raided the church. But that was part of what came out of their raid.
Right.
And they were like, oh my God. You know, they had no idea. Nobody could believe a church would be doing this kind of thing. This is Gestapo tactics. This is crazy.
It's pretty deep.
And her shoulders, and you know, these other people that I mentioned who fought the church and took it on legally and took it on you know, through publications and whatnot. Russell Miller wrote a biography of L. Ron Hubbard in the 80s, right after he died. He got all kinds of hell from the church professionally. He was never even a Scientologist. He was just some journalist in Britain. All these guys were put under intense amounts of pressure by the church because they were trying to expose what the church is doing. And it's because of their efforts that we have these OT levels to look at, that we know so much about L. Ron Hubbard, that we are able to say with such authority what we can say about this organization. And, as well as, of course, our own personal, Mike and I, our own personal experiences with it. So I just want to do a little bit of a shout out to those people, because they were the ones who really paid the price for us to be able to do what we do now that the church is really in its death throes. It really is.
It feels like it.
That's why. It really is. They're on their way out. They're down to maybe 20,000, 25,000 people worldwide. I mean, it's a tiny little group at this point, and they're not long for this world.
It doesn't mean they can't have a resurgence, and that's why we stay on top of it.
No question. Yeah, no, they need to be. The exposure needs to continue.
I'll tell you and I want people to know, there's no way in my mind that from a few TV appearances and from a few books, these guys are getting financial security off of Scientology. So the whole looking at the get rich thing is a joke. It's a joke.
I wish.
Right?
I keep waiting for my check from Big Pharma. Supposedly Big Pharma, sponsors all of us to speak out against Scientology because
scapegoat?
Scientology is hurting, Big Pharma's profits because they're exposing how bad, psychiatric drugs are, right? And so this is what they actually tell Scientologists. They used to tell Scientologists that when Anonymous attacked Scientology in 2008, that Big Pharma was paying Anonymous members to do that. So
I doubt it.
I'm still waiting for checks from Big Pharma. I'm still waiting for, these TV appearances. Hey, you don't get paid for them. They fly you out, you do it, and you fly home, and that's it. That's what happens.
Yeah, I'm not. How much am I paying you, Chris?
Yeah, exactly. That's Christopher Shelton. Just make sure you get that name right on the check.
They're not always on the right side of the law, but no one tells Anonymous what they're going to do. They just don't.
No. It's just as pure fantasy as Xenu. I mean, it's just these people tell themselves this stuff to make themselves feel better or something. That's not what motivates us to do what we do. I'm not doing this. Believe me, there's very different things I could be doing with my life right now, where I could be making all kinds of money, and that's not what I'm doing with my time right now, because I think this is more important.
And just to mention, why Anonymous was protesting was based on the story, and I believe it started out with, if I'm not mistaken, with the 2020 investigation of Lisa McPherson.
Back in the 90s, yeah, Lisa McPherson was killed by Scientology.
And that should never be forgotten.
It should never be forgotten. It was awful. But the reason Anonymous took on Scientology was actually because of the Tom Cruise video.
Oh, the leaked video.
Yes, the Scientology, a video was leaked of Tom Cruise talking crazy talk about, how great Scientology was, and he looked pretty crazy. Nobody had ever seen this side of Tom before. And this video got out on the internet, and the church tried to suppress it. They tried to get it taken down, and somebody in Anonymous heard about this, and they were like, what? Because they were getting all kinds of laughs and, lulls over this video. And so suddenly I think they call it the Streisand effect, but this video just started appearing everywhere because Anonymous members were mirroring it everywhere all over the internet, and Scientology was trying harder and harder to take it down. And so then they were like, oh, Scientology is all about restricting freedom of speech. Well, we're not into that.
Right.
And they started looking into Scientology and finding out about Lisa McPherson and about, they heard in 2008, they saw all these posts and books and things that had been done by those earlier people I was talking about, and they were like, what have we stepped into? And they started taking on the Church of Scientology for its actual abuses and human rights violations, and they brought it to the attention of the world. And Anonymous was a milestone in the fight against Scientology, and what they did was it was not planned. It could not have been better. It could not have been the most perfect foe for Scientology because Scientology's playbook of tactics doesn't work with Anonymous.
Right.
L. Ron Hubbard never predicted anything like Anonymous happening. He didn't even predict the internet. He didn't know any of this stuff was going to happen.
Yep.
So Scientology was totally caught with their pants down when Anonymous happened, and they've never been the same since.
Well, thanks for clarifying that, because I was nigging it with Lisa McPherson somehow. I think it was the anniversary, though, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Lisa McPherson's story is a true tragedy in the history of Scientology.
And I think
she did not need to die.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I think it's only fair to point out there was more Lisa McPhersons over the years that never got that kind of attention.
Yes, there have been, and I know about a couple of them, and maybe those stories will get out at some point.
One was mentioned on Leah Remini's show, I think just last week or the week before, maybe the one you were on. I think actually. So I want to ask you one more thing. So we're running kind of long here, and you've been great, by the way. Thank you for this.
Absolutely, no problem.
Are you concerned? Are you genuinely concerned for the well-being of Shelly Miscavige? That's David Miscavige's wife.
Yes and no. Yes, I am concerned about her as a human being. I am bothered by the treatment that she's gotten and the fact that she is in the situation that she's in, because I feel for her like I feel for anyone would feel for somebody who is in a concentration camp or is in a prison situation, where it's sort of wrongful imprisonment sort of thing, right? I feel bad for her that that's happening to her. And I think that, in the context of her world and the way that she has, because she was raised with Scientology, right? She's never known anything else but that world. So I feel for her because I know that she knows, from her way of thinking, she has no choice but to be in the position that she's in.
Yeah.
It's not true. It's not correct. It's not right. She can and should get out of that situation, but she doesn't have, for whatever reason, she doesn't have the force of will to do that.
Okay.
And so I feel bad for her for that reason.
Anything?
On the other hand,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish.
I also know that the other thing I have to say with her, and I've said this before, is that she's married. She was married to David Miscavige. She still is. She was with him, side by side with him, doing all the horrible things that he's done up until 2004, 2005, when she, got put away.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any sympathy for her
in that
regard to those activities, because David Miscavige is the worst of Scientology. And she supported him, worked with him, aided and abetted him.
Yeah.
And I cannot support that in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
I feel for her situation, and I hope that she gets out of that situation. And if she does get out of that situation and choose to speak out about what happened, I would absolutely support her in any and every way possible.
And so the idea that comes up in my head, and it's all purely speculation. I think other people might be concerned about it. The reports, Tony Ortega's reported on something that he claims is a very reliable source, and I find Tony Ortega to be a very reliable source. That she's been spotted looking disheveled, looking a little lost, looking frail. Is there any suggestion, do you think, in that she might be under the influence of some kind of drugs to keep her from really showing any will to escape because she's just out of it?
No. That would shock me beyond any realm of reality that I have, because Scientologists, as bad as they get, are very anti-drug. And they would not resort to that kind of tactic to keep her under control. That's not how they would do what they do.
So David,
psychological and cognitive trickery to keep people under control. They don't use drugs.
So David Miscavige buys into that. David Miscavige isn't going to put himself above that and just do what he wants to do, regardless of what the beliefs are?
Well, my conjecture is no.
Okay.
I don't think he would do that, because he would have to have the cooperation of other Scientologists in doing it.
True.
And I just don't think that that's the way he would go.
Okay.
I will absolutely say that I could be wrong. I'm not insisting that this is true, but the attitude in Scientology about any kind of psychotropic or mind-altering drugs is that they are the tools of Satan, basically. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they absolutely would not resort to using those under any, under any circumstances.
All right. Okay. Would you believe it would be a waste of time to send the police there? She would probably come to the door and say everything's fine.
Well, they did send the police there, and look what happened. So yeah, that was a huge waste of time.
Okay. And I want to say this. I want to explain something real quick to my listeners and for you, and because I understand. I do a podcast. It's a small podcast, and I have no personal connection with Scientology. I have no personal history. I have not been affected in any way personally by Scientology. But I feel like it's a time where I've seen enough. I've done enough research. Every voice should be heard, and I'm not trying to take away. There's podcasts dedicated to surviving Scientology by ex-Scientologists. There's plenty of exposure to Scientology. I feel like there's never enough voices, and I feel like if you see something wrong and you want to do something about it, you should, and that's why I do what I do. That's why I've created this show, and why I brought you on, and I hope to have others on. Why, you said a lot of it. You basically said it the whole interview, but just to summarize, why do you speak out, and why should others who aren't personally involved speak out?
Well, the bottom line is because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Is really what it comes down to. You have we're in this world to do whatever we're going to do with our lives. We only have a short time to do it. And how do you want to be remembered?
Yep.
What legacy do you want to leave for your life and for others? I think it should be a positive one. I think that I don't think that we're here for some purpose. I think the universe is pretty random, but I think that we can choose to have a purpose, and that purpose should be a constructive one.
Absolutely.
And I think that, when you're faced with a situation where you have been, conned, fooled, right, hoodwinked, whatever, you should do something about that, and especially with something as destructive, as overtly destructive as Scientology. So I think that's, in a way, I feel that I'm doing this, and others who are critics of the church are doing this out of a moral obligation of what's right. What's the right thing to do.
Yep.
And also, of course, the other reason why this is helpful to do for me and other ex-members is because it's cathartic. It really, really helps to recover from the process that you've been through, to speak out, to learn about it, to tell others about it, to share what you know. And this is any group. This is anybody. This is not just Scientology.
Yep.
Not by any stretch, right? When you come out of some horrible situation, no matter what that situation is, speak out about it, find a voice, find a medium, and use it, and it does help you too. And I say that from 3 years of personal experience, and I just can't recommend it enough for people who have been in that situation. So those are my reasons.
Yeah, for you, I can say that I've never heard a negative thing out of your mouth. So I really can't imagine people bad-mouthing you the way they do. So just for that, I think it should be really encouraging how many people on social media, just social media alone, have shown up who weren't ever involved, like myself, who weren't, like Tony Ortega, never ever involved in Scientology, to stand up and say, this is wrong. How many times have you been in a situation in your life, we all have been, either at the workplace or in school or somewhere, where you were singled out and someone could have spoke up for you, but things were too good for them to speak up. Why would they sacrifice themselves for you? And this is me setting the example, and these people on social media, they're setting that example, and good for that. That's what we should be doing.
That's right, exactly. And it doesn't take a lot of time. It's not a lot of effort.
Nope.
To contribute to this kind of motion, or to help those of us who are.
Now, Do you think I'm putting myself in any risk, or is it like we're past that point anymore where they could really do anything because there's too much exposure? Because my wife has asked me.
No, I don't think you're. No, I mean, look, it took him 3 years to get around
Right?
putting a page up about me. You know what I mean? Like, ooh. So, no, I don't. If this were the 1970s, if this were the 1980s, we'd be having a very different conversation.
Right.
But
so much.
We're not there anymore.
Yep. So much is out.
The Church of Scientology is not as powerful as it once was. It is not as litigious as it once was. It certainly has the resources to be. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Because I'm not trying to, poke a sleeping bear or something and saying these things. It's very, very possible that they could come after me or anybody they wanted to, legally or otherwise. They have the resources to do it. But the exposure is so great now, and the ability to expose what they're doing is so instantaneous because of the internet that the whole playing field has changed. And it isn't the 70s or the 80s anymore where they could rely on their third-grade bully tactics and not have anybody notice what was going on. Those days are gone forever.
Yep.
And that's what they've lost, and that's why their teeth are not as sharp as they used to be. It's because the light of truth and, of exposing their crimes and their nonsense is so much easier for anybody to do. They're following you around. You just got to whip out your iPhone,
Yep.
Start recording them.
It just backfires.
You can live stream it to the internet. Millions of people are watching them do what they do right now in real time,
It has come a long way.
So the internet has really become very enabling for people like us in this way, and this is one of the very, very positive aspects of the information age. We talk about the negatives all the time, and there are a lot of negatives, but there's also positives, and this is one of them. And so it has defanged the church greatly, and these other destructive cults as well. Almost everything I've said today about Scientology applies just as much to every other destructive cult out there, and I hope people get that message. It's not just Scientology that does this stuff, and it's not just Scientology who should be exposed for it.
Oh, there's cults hurting people we never even heard of, and they need to be exposed if they can be. Absolutely.
That's right. Exactly.
Good rule of thumb to avoid these things is my philosophy is be ready to accept or believe anything. I'm willing to believe anything, but I will question everything.
Exactly. And that's what critical thinking is all about. Is questioning everything, not being so damn sure that you know everything there is to know, because none of us do. None of us do. And so we can learn things and grow and make decisions and stuff based on our knowledge, but we should always, always, always be willing to learn more and know that we don't know as much as we like to think we do.
Yeah, we do have egos.
Exactly. So and that's why I think that I've gotten into critical thinking as much as I have, because it was a real, life lesson. Scientology was talk about learning a lesson the hard way.
Okay, so
that's what I did.
So I've kept you a very long time here, Chris, and I don't want to. What I do with all my guests, no, I'm not going to exclude my Scientology or cult guests. I do with 10 questions. It's a silly 10 questions. Think fast and just answer them. If you're not comfortable, say pass. It's a fun little exercise. Before we do, let me ask: are we going to see any more of you on Leah Remini Scientology: The Aftermath?
I doubt that you're going to see me on her show.
Okay.
I have done some. I have been in touch with the producers and whatnot. You will see little influences of mine on the show.
Okay.
But you won't see me on camera that I know of, unless they invite me out there again.
All right, phenomenal. And just before we get to 10 questions again, you have Critical Thinking at Large as your YouTube series.
Yes, my my YouTube channel is actually my name, Chris Shelton.
Okay.
So if you Google Chris Shelton Scientology, you will find, everything that I do very rapidly. I have a YouTube channel. I have a blog called mncriticalthinking.com that has all my videos and everything on it, as well as some written articles. And I have my book, which is available on Amazon as a audiobook, hardcover book, or hard copy book, and ebook.
Excellent.
And it's a critical analysis of Scientology. It's not just my story.
To break down.
It's not just my memoir. It's an actual critical analysis of the whole subject.
Excellent, excellent. I look forward. I have not read it yet, but I do look forward to reading it. There's a lot of books that I never looked at that I intend to read now, like the Unbreakable Miss Lovely, Xenu A to Z, Leah Remini's Troublemaker. I start reading them all soon. So here we go.
They're fascinating books. I'm telling you, man. Unbreakable Miss Lovely is fascinating.
That's the Paulette Cooper.
You're horrified when you read that thing. Yeah.
I want to read that. But here we go. We're going to go with 10 questions. Thank you again, and we'll close off the 10 questions. But here we go. 10 questions with Chris Shelton. Number 1, true or false? Xenu's story could be a great movie if done right.
True.
I can imagine it. An awesome, awesome story, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I'd want the right people to do it. Maybe J.J. Abrams. All right. Number 2. Politically speaking, we won't get too political, but the two-party system is part of our problem.
True.
From a critical thinker, right there. We breached on it earlier. Number 3. Just like in just a couple words, Leah Remini is
amazing.
Awesome.
Brave. Ballsy.
I think someone said she's got more balls than David Miscavige, and I probably believe that.
Oh, by far. By far.
Yeah. Number 4, true or false? You are, and I see this with people who've been through drug addicts, different things, different bad points in their life. True or false? You are better off for having your Scientology experience.
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
It's loaded a little bit.
It is. I will simply say, rather than say true or false, I will simply say I don't regret the experience because it made me who I am now.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly believe my life would have been better without it.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, number 5, think fast. If you're having breakfast, do you prefer a pastry, a donut, a cereal, or something else?
Oh, man, a donut every time.
Donuts are good. All right, number 6, cast L. Ron Hubbard in a movie. Who would you cast as L. Ron Hubbard in a movie?
The janitor.
Okay, that's awesome, right? Probably had the same amount of credibility. Number 7. To you, what is God to you, or is everything to you have a scientific explanation?
God is an undecided hope of the potentiality of something bigger than us that perhaps created what we experience as life.
There almost has to be something bigger. At some point, science fails to explain.
There are many questions that science does not answer adequately, which is why we have philosophy. Actually, science comes from philosophy. So, that's what I believe, and I think that until science has those answers, if and when it has those answers, I'm going to continue to hope that there is something more.
That's a great answer. Number 8, what was the last song stuck in your head?
Fortress Around Your Heart by Sting.
All right. Very good. And number 9, who was the next? So Leah Remini we looked at, and Mike Rinder we looked at, but Leah Remini as a celebrity looked at and said, what is she thinking? And she turned it around, and she's now an advocate for ex-Scientologists and helping families not lose each other. Who was the next most redeemable celebrity in your mind? Is it like Jada Will Smith or Kirstie Alley or Jenna Elfman, or who in your mind?
I actually hope, what's her name, Laura Prepon?
Okay.
I hope she steps out. I'm hopeful that she will step out.
Okay, it seems like she'd be influential with a whole lot of age groups.
I think so too, and I think it would matter if she stepped out. and I think it's realistic to expect that maybe she would.
Okay.
Versus some of the other celebrities who are, going to die Scientologists. I mean, Tom Cruise is never going to leave it.
Right.
And Kirstie Alley is never going to leave it. I mean, they just can't. It's just too much part of them.
Right. I'll never understand it, and we can talk about it probably for 3 hours. I'll never understand it. But number 10, without this, you'd be lost. Without blank, I would be lost. Finish that sentence, or complete that sentence.
My girlfriend.
Awesome. Very supportive.
My family. Yeah. My family. My loved ones.
That's phenomenal. Is there anything else you want to say? Any more messages you want to put out before I end this?
No, I think I've pretty much did everything except perhaps, these words. Please don't get involved with Scientology.
That's good enough. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And actually, there is one last thing I should say. If by some wild opportunity there is some Scientologist listening to this, I do want to tell you that there is life outside of Scientology. It's real, it's possible, and it is fucking wonderful.
It is.
So step out, because there's a lot of help out here. There is a lot of support. You do not have anything to be worried about.
Well, what's that email address, by the way?
What situation you're in.
There's an email address that Tony Ortega and Mike Render and Leah Remini are always pushing out. You know the email address? Hushmail.
Oh, yeah. Hushmail is great for private communications and stuff. I think the one they're looking for is stories about science.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. I thought that was also to help people.
Knowledge reports. I think that's knowledge reports.
Knowledge reports. Oh, yes. Okay, there you go. All right.
Yeah. But there are support systems out here. They are not publicized. They're not broadcast. They're not talked about because the Church of Scientology would shut them down if they found out about it. But they exist. They're out here, and if people need help, they can get it. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope people hear this, and I hope it makes a difference to somebody. Like I said, I tried to get the Scientology guy on, and he was like, how big's your audience? And I'm like, well, aren't you happy if you reach just one person? Isn't that how it should be? He's like, why do you care how big my audience is? Shut up.
Well, good luck to you. I hope the podcast reaches some folks, and I hope you have success.
You too. Take care, Chris.
Thanks a lot.
All right, so there was Chris Shelton. Really, really great guy. Really great conversation. Just to piggyback on what he said, I mean, let's just look at what I'm doing here. I'm not going to get famous off of this. People want to help. You speak out, people want to help. You hear Leah Remini's story, you hear Mike Ritter's story, you hear Amy Scooby's, Mary Kahn, Paulette Cooper, Chris Shelton. These people come out and they speak, and everybody wants to help. There was a report from Independent Scientology News that had a little girl, 12 years old, told her parents on Twitter, it was reported, told her parents she wants to be a reporter, she can help Leah Remini. I remember seeing my first report on Lisa McPherson on 2020 in 2006 or 7, and I haven't heard much about it for how many years now? Like almost 10 years. And there's these claims of abuse that don't come out 2 years later, or claims of abuse that happened years ago that came out and still aren't talked about to this day. We can't let this be forgotten. And the more people, the more of you who used to be in Scientology who want to speak out, that have been afraid to, that actually come forward, the more people who want to help and do something with you and for you. And that's kind of what we have next week. Squirrel Buster for a day. What is this guy's name? Bert Lay just came on Twitter, and we followed each other, and this guy was a squirrel buster for a day. He hated having to do it and be involved in it, and he wants to speak out now. So next week, on another extra special edition of Come Get Some Friday, you're going to hear from Bert Leahy, cameraman who was one of the squirrel busters, following around Marty Rathburn. So you don't want to miss that. And I'll have more opinions. I have so many opinions after this last Tuesday's Scientology, the Aftermath. I got a lot to say. Just not much time to say it. I will say real quick before I go, oh my God. The idea that Scientology is protected by the religious freedom in the First Amendment, to some extent, there's got to be a place where law can step in. If they were skinning people alive and putting them on the front lawn and saying that's their religious practice, I guarantee you somebody would step in. There's got to be some precedent for illegal acts, egregious illegal acts, and I'd like to see that looked into. In the meantime, until next week, you guys have a happy new year. That about sums up the year. Take care, and I'll see you then.
Hey, this is Chris. Thank you for checking out the YouTube version of one of my audio interviews. If you'd like to see more, leave in the comments which ones you'd like to see next. Believe it or not, this is not a cash-generating venture for me. I do this on my own, and it's a lot more work than it looks. So please show me that you appreciate the fruits of my labor by hitting that like button and subscribe and sharing with as many people as possible. That, in turn, will inspire and encourage me to do more faster and get it out there for you here on this YouTube channel. Otherwise, as usual, stay connected. And that about sums it up.